Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. And if you're new here, then hi, my name's Zoe. Thank you for coming to my channel. Please subscribe, it means so much to me. Join my little family. I've got like 70 people so far, and it's just so amazing. From today, as you can tell, I'm starting a new series called Serial Killer Sunday. It's a bit of a mouthful. From today, including today's video, it's going to be Serial Killer Sundays. So every Sunday I'm going to post a case about a serial killer. Self-explanatory. Today we are going to talk about Stephen Port, and he was also known as the Grindr killer. Stephen was born in Southend in England, but then when he was a year old he moved to Dagenham with his parents, and his parents still live there now. So he was described as a bit of a loner at school. He lived alone in Barking in London. So his neighbour later described him as being a particular childlike type character, quite peculiar behaviour for a grown man. Stephen also had a weird obsession for children's toys. Considering he was like a grown man in his 30s and 40s, he was obsessed with children's toys and buying children's toys from Toys R Us. So Stephen came out as gay in the mid-2000s. He would go online to meet boyfriends and partners and things like that, and he'd use various dating sites. On these dating sites he would make himself look a hell of a lot younger, and he'd also use out-of-date profile pictures. He was constantly trawling the internet for pornography and looking for, you know, very disturbing videos of young boys. And these videos showed young boys being raped and also gangs raped by men, and then he would keep that and then video his response to it. His sick fetish led him to lure young boys into his apartment, and then he would drug them, and then he would play his sick fantasy of rape against these young boys, and then he would kill them. So now we're going to talk about Stephen's victims. So the first victim of Stephen was a young boy called Anthony Walgate, who was 23. He was a fashion student and he had been attending university in Hull, and he was renting a room in London. So he occasionally worked as a male escort to try and make ends meet and get money here and there, and this is where he met Stephen Port. So Stephen Port offered him £800 for an overnight stay, and at first Anthony was a bit cautious about it all. He wasn't too sure about going, and then he decided to go, but he confided in one of his friends first. He told one of his friends that he was going to take protection. He was going to take a knife or some scissors just in case, and in his words he said, "Just in case I get killed." And unfortunately he was found dead outside of Stephen's apartment on June the 14th, 2014. And it was actually Stephen who phoned the emergency services. He said that he found a boy unresponsive, possibly drunk or maybe having a seizure, and when they got there they obviously pronounced him dead because he passed away. And when they was interviewing Stephen, his stories kept changing, so he actually got jailed for perverting the court of justice, and I think he was sentenced to something like 6 months, but he only ended up serving 4, and then he was released. So after Stephen's release, this is when he would be introduced to his next victim. He would meet Gabriel Kavara, who was 22. He was originally from Slovakia, but he came to London to start a new life. So by mid-July he was living temporarily with another man called John Pope, and he also met him on a dating website called Bender. Around August 23rd, 2014, he moved into Stephen's flat. Stephen had offered him the flat to stay, saying he could stay on the sofa rent-free. Now, Gabriel told one of his friends that he didn't intend to sleep with Stephen. That was none of his intentions, but he was just glad to have somewhere rent-free to stay. And Gabriel had also described Stephen as being kind of different. So Stephen had told a neighbour about his new Slovakian housemate, but unfortunately a few days later Gabriel decided that it was time to move on. And then on August 27th, Stephen phoned his sister Sharon to say that there was a dead boy in his bed in his flat. And obviously his sister was frantic and advised him to go straight to the police, call the police, emergency services, everything, and get Gabriel the help he needs. But the following day, Gabriel's body was found dumped 500 metres away. It was found in Birkin Abbey churchyard by a dog walker. He was propped up, wearing sunglasses and next to a bag of his belongings. After this, Stephen struck up quite an intense relationship with one of Gabriel's friends over the internet. This friend was in Spain. For months he pretended to be a 21-year-old boy, a California student living in London called John Luck, and he did this just to get more information on the case. He wanted inside knowledge of the case. And on to the next victim, Daniel Whitworth. Now Daniel was 21 years old. He had been living with his partner Ricky in Kent after meeting on Lads dating site. He loved his job. He was a chef and he used to work at Canary Wharf, and he really loved doing this job. It was his perfect job, and he was really passionate about cooking. He liked to drink, but he never took drugs, and the only time he ever did drugs was when him and his partner had gone to Amsterdam and they tried cannabis. So Daniel met Stephen on a dating website called FitLads, August 18th, 2014. This was actually before the death of Gabriel, but they did not meet up till the evening of Thursday, September 18th of 2014. So when Daniel failed to turn up to work the next day, Ricky reported him missing to Kent Police. Meanwhile, Stephen deleted everything, the FitLads account, all trace of them two ever meeting. So on September 20th, 2 days after Daniel had gone to meet Stephen, his body was found in the same place by the same dog walker that Gabriel's body had been found, in the exact same location. His mobile was missing, and there was also a fake suicide note next to Daniel's body, and this suicide note was basically saying that he had involvement in Gabriel's death, and that was Stephen's way of ratting himself out of it, so then the police would not, know that it was him, and know that they wouldn't know he was connected. And on to Stephen's final victim, 25-year-old Jack Taylor. He lived with his parents in Dagenham and worked as a forklift driver for London City Bond. So he was described by his sisters as a lovely boy. He was bubbly, he was out there, and he was really passionate about his job, and he would not have taken drugs because he would have been too scared to lose his job. Obviously, with being a forklift truck driver, you can easily lose that licence, and then you wouldn't be able to work if you did drugs. So just under a year after Daniel's death, Jack had been out on September the 13th drinking. He'd been out with a couple of friends. They was drinking beers, whiskey, had been drinking at the trading club in Dagenham. When he returned home about 1:30 AM, his father Colin was home, but then in the morning when his parents had gone to get him up, that's when they realised he was missing. So they later found out that he'd hooked up on Grindr with Stephen Port. CCTV picked up the pair meeting each other at Barking Station and then heading towards Stephen's flat. And this is where Jack would die soon after. So within 4 hours of meeting Jack, Stephen had deleted his Grindr account and blocked everything. So again, there was no proof there that they had met each other through Grindr. So just after 1 PM on September the 15th, Jack's body was discovered in the graveyard just 500 metres away from Stephen's home. And it was all in the same circumstances as Daniel and Gabriel, and again, Jack's mobile phone was missing. But Jack's family initially said that the police treated Jack's case as an overdose, and his family just knew that that wasn't right. He was so anti-drugs, so they pushed for them to look into it more. So all the 4 bodies were found in the vicinity of Stephen's home. Anthony was found at Stephen's doorstep, and the other 3 were found in the graveyard just 500 metres from Stephen's home. So police really neglected this case. They really didn't try hard enough. They neglected all them 4 boys by not looking into this hard enough. They didn't look into the deaths despite them having all the evidence. They failed to interview eyewitnesses. Even Stephen's neighbour, who had said Stephen was very odd and seen him carrying things in and out of his flat. This neighbour had witnessed that, and the police didn't turn up to interview him. Daniel's stepmother was informed that Daniel had died, but the police had told her that he died of a drug overdose, despite there was no investigation in place to say that he actually did die of a drug overdose. So they also discounted bruising underneath Daniel's arms, which would suggest that someone else had involvement, and even a coroner later testified that it was third party. There was no chance that it was caused by Daniel himself. So also Jack's sister remembers the police coming to tell her that Jack had passed away. They literally just said Jack's dead, which for a start is really wrong, because it isn't compassionate. Police officers should be fully trained to be totally compassionate and come across properly when announcing to a family member that one of their loved ones has passed away. So the police assumed that a needle found in Jack's pocket was the reason that he died. They assumed because of the track marks on his arms that Jack had done this to himself, and again it was an overdose. But Jack's family made the police very aware that Jack was anti-drugs, and they did not believe that he would do such a thing. They would not believe he would voluntarily take drugs. Jack's sisters contacted Dagenham police station 11 days after Jack's death to find out what was happening, to find out where they was up to with the investigation, and they actually found out that no investigation had even started. The police did not even conduct an investigation. It wasn't until the man on the CCTV with Jack was confirmed to be Stephen that they started to look into it and started to put all the dots together and started to interview witnesses and interview Stephen, and that's when it started to come clear to police that Stephen Port was a serial killer, and he had been drugging his victims, raping them and then killing them, discarding of their bodies. Now, he killed them by drugging them, so it was looked like a drug overdose that the people had caused themselves, but obviously they didn't. It was Stephen who did this to them. So on the 23rd of November 2016, Stephen was convicted of the assaults, rapes and murders of Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Cavani, Daniel Whitworth and Jack Taylor, as well as 3 other rapes of 3 different men. And these 3 men he also drugged as well. He was also convicted of 10 counts of administering a substance with intent and 4 sexual assaults. He was found guilty on all accounts. Stephen was sentenced to life imprisonment, and unfortunately there was a total of 11 victims. 11 people fell for Stephen's crimes. He killed 4 people, and the other people he unfortunately raped and he sexually assaulted, and he totally took advantage of them. And I am so glad that he's in prison, and I'm disgusted that the police didn't pick up on this sooner, because when you think about everything, when you think about Stephen ringing the ambulance and where they was found, and the fact that there was within 500 metres of his home, just sparks suspicion, and they didn't look into it. And these could have been avoided. These deaths could have been avoided, but they weren't, which is very unfortunate, and my heart really does go out to all the victims and all their families and everybody affected, because it really isn't, it should have never happened in my opinion. So that is today's video, and my first episode of Serial Killer Sundays. Oh, I'm so happy that I've come up with that name, you just don't understand. So every Sunday I will be posting a video about a serial killer, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you turn that bell on ready for that. If true crime videos are something you're into, I'm going to be posting true crime every Saturday and Sunday, and in the week on Mondays and Wednesdays I'm going to be posting different kind of videos, like makeup videos, vlogs, story times, all sorts of things like that. So please subscribe, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.